Opening the bedroom doors. We're going to start by boogie woogieing, getting loose. So we picked the perfect song for this, maybe. We'll see if you like it.
I said certified free, 7 days a week, wet and gushy, make that pull out game weak. Yeah, you dealing with some wet and gushy.
Follow me.
Everything you got, but this wet and gushy. Beat it up, baby, catch a charge. Extra large and extra
If you're
hard.
watching this, join us dancing too, if you feel like it.
Like a credit card. Hop on top, I wanna ride. I do a giggle, I'm kinda wild. Look at my mouth, look at my thighs. Sweater is wet, come take a dive. Sign me up, like I'm surprised. That's role play, I wear disguise. I want you to park that Big Mac truck right in this little garage. Make me dream, make it stream. I don't clean, but let me tell you, I got this ring.
Gobble me, swallow me, drip down inside of me. Jump out for you, let it get inside of me. I tell them where to put it, never tell them where I'm about to be. I'll run down on them before I have a night. Running me, drop your style, bite your lip. Ask for a call while you ride that dick. While you really ain't never got a want for a thing. You already made his mind up, boy. Can't not get your boots, can't your coat. Just for pictures of this wet and cushy.
Okay.
Just to kiss.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. That was it.
Yay.
Cool.
Already sweaty, great, or wet, whatever
I'm
you
going
want.
to try once to turn, but it's not going to work.
Did it work?
Magic of the internet.
Yay.
Because of that
Welcome,
song.
everybody that's joining us. This is the beautiful Ann Moore. My name is Jessie Fresh. I am your host, and together we're opening the bedroom doors to more possibility, more play, more pleasure. That's what this show is all about. So if you like this, give us a thumbs up or a heart or a comment if you're watching this live. This show is all about you exploring topics that are titillating, that tickle your mind and open your mind to new possibilities in eroticism. So I am a sex coach, and that's how I met Ann, is that we're sex coaches, and we have spent lots of fun time developing our knowledge in this information. And today we are going to be talking about loving beyond monogamy. Ann is someone that I've got to witness in her growth in different relationships, and I've really enjoyed seeing her progression to non-monogamy, or I'll let Ann describe what it is that you prefer to call your relationship styles. And Ann and I first met when I had gone to an after-hours training during our coaching, and Ann was a part of a kink demo. And it was an amazing, I brought my mom. I brought my mom to this demo, watched Ann, and I watched Ann participate in this demo and was like completely dumbfounded by the amount of openness that Ann had and the amount of pleasure that I saw show up in Ann of like having someone take over. So Ann, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would
Share
love
with people
to.
who you are.
Yes.
Yay!
Yay! I'm Ann Moore, and it's just with one O, like I want more. And I do, always. And actually that, what you said about how we met is a perfect example, and I'll talk more about it, of sort of like how I'm doing poly and what it means to me. And I guess I'm using poly right now. And I am also, let's see, what do? I help you love your unlovable parts, or rather the parts that you think are unlovable, because they're all lovable. And that very often shows up in sexuality. It shows up in our bodies, particular body parts that we consider not good enough or not okay or not touchable. Or so I help bring all that online. We're back online, and I am a certified sexological body worker. So I really work in the body, with the body, whether I'm doing virtual coaching or actual touch sessions. It's the same thing. It's bringing you back into what's happening here, because this is where we live. And because in our society, there's this huge disconnect with our bodies in all sorts of ways, in spirituality, in sexuality, all sorts of ways. Yeah, that's probably good.
Yay. Thank you so much, Anne. And can you tell people how you got involved, or your progression to the poly lifestyle? Like, when did you realize that it was right for you, or that this was what fit?
So it's been kind of a long progression for me. And I actually found out about it like 25 years ago, really long time ago, when I moved into a group house that was run by a couple who were involved in the non-monogamy community. So it was the Bay Area, and they were attached to Moore University, no relation. And it was, their lifestyle was, they had an open relationship. So they had an extra bedroom for lovers. And like, we'd run into them in the huge kitchen when we were all stumbling around for coffee. We'd be like, oh, I haven't seen you before. You must be something. So I knew about the idea, and but I didn't think I was intrigued, and I wanted kids at that time in my life. And I just had it very firmly in my head that I couldn't be a mom or a responsible parent and be anything but monogamous. And even at the time, thinking I couldn't actually have a hot sex life, and I certainly couldn't be kinky in any way and be a responsible parent. And so I basically shut all that down and married someone who was wonderful. And we were together for 24 years. We raised our son. And when he started to move, like going off to college, I'm like, it's just going to be the two of us. Not sure how that's going to work. And I've also been, I've always struggled with monogamy. Not so much that I wanted like lots of multiple partners at a time, but that it was like, I want the option to explore when an amazing opportunity comes up that I don't want to pass up. And so I wasn't successful at monogamy in that relationship. I cheated. I wasn't ethical, and then shut it down after a while, and felt like I was dying. Like I didn't have access to what I needed sexually. And so that kink demo that you talked about was the beginning of the opening, where, and that's my now ex. And that demo was actually I requested a friend who's a dom to dominate me, to show him that my body loves this, because he didn't believe me. He's like, no, you don't want that. That's all, only screwed up people want that. That's not, that's not you. And I'm like, no, really, all my fantasies. Yes. And I wasn't completely sure. And that just nailed it, of like, yeah, this body loves that. And it was very moving and beautiful. And he couldn't argue with it afterward. And also he's like, that's not my thing. I see that you like it, and he tried for a while, and, we did a bunch of stuff. And one of the things that I raised was, maybe we need to open this relationship then. If you don't want that, but we want to be together, how else can we do this? So that I am not shutting that part of myself down, because I'm not willing to do that anymore. And we had a long, kind of did everything, and found out that he really doesn't want that. And I am a total sex geek. I want to read about it. I want to think about it. I want to talk about it. I want to help other people do it more. And I'm like happy to have my every vacation be involved with something sexy. And so that's my thing. And it's definitely not his. So that was great. And he's actually really happy now, monogamously. He just actually proposed to his girlfriend. I'm so happy. It's really great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's so sweet. I'm really happy.
Yay.
Yeah. And so I really started looking hard at like monogamy and why I had been doing it. And I had been doing it because I didn't think there was another option. Or at least I didn't think there was another ethical option. I thought that either you did monogamy or you cheated. Like there was no other way to organize. And also that if you did do that, you were bad at relationships and bad at love. And began to learn about poly and ethical non-monogamy, and sort of rethink, like, wait a second, I lived in a house where this was happening. They had totally transparent communication. They had other relationship problems, which I think is part of what, like, they ended up divorcing. And so I think that kind of shadowed what I was looking at. But that there are people who do this really well and successfully who are super happy. And also, you've talked about the blueprints on this show before, I'm sure. I'm like gigantic shapeshifter. And so for me, the option of variety is super important. And it doesn't mean I want to have sex with everyone I ever meet. And it doesn't even mean right now that I want more than one sexual partner who's like really intimate. But if something shows up that's cool, I want to be able to maybe do it.
Yeah.
And not feel guilty about it and not feel guilty for wanting it. Because these are my desires. So, yeah.
Thank you. And will you share with people, I know that there might be people that are listening that are like, wow, like their heads turning and they're like, oh,
terminology. Yes, thank you.
Not just terminology, but like all the things that non-monogamy isn't, basically. Like can we talk about that and what it's not, so that we can create a clear idea of how this can be practiced in a really beautiful way?
Yes. So it
is that's a lot.
First of all, it's not exclusive. It is not scarcity. It is not that there's the one and that you need to find the one and then make sure you get them, which means you have to be in competition with everybody else. And then when you get the one, you have to hang on to them for all you're worth, and until death do you part, or you failed at love. You're a failure. It's a disaster. That's it. It's not that either. It means that relationships can transition, that they are kind of organisms and that they may need to change. It's like, when there's a tree and it has to bend this way, like that, instead of like that tree is a failure because it's not straight. It's like, well, no. What else? It's not cheating. It's not unethical. It is actually based on consent. So it's based on when it's done well, and there are people who do it not well, just like monogamy. It's intentional, but it's saying there are people I want in my life. For me, the definition is anybody I'm involved with, everybody knows everything, and there's informed, enthusiastic consent about what's happening. There's no, I don't do, don't ask, don't tell. I don't do any kind of, it's not like I necessarily have to be in your face with everyone about every detail, but it's like, here's what I think you need to know. Is there something else you think you need to know? Like that kind of conversation.
I like that.
Yeah. And that it is, I was going to say it's not super slutty, but it can be super slutty.
It can if you want it to be.
Totally super slutty.
Yeah.
With consent. And that includes like conversations about safe sex right now. It actually includes a lot of conversations about COVID. Because, if you're involved with more than one person, and especially if like you're nesting with more, you have to have that conversation about and it's about risk assessment. It's not about like sex and like love. It's not about total safety. You can't be involved with any other human being and be completely safe. That's just not possible. There's always the chance of loss or change. And so it's assessing what risks you're willing to take for the total amazing benefits that may be available.
Thank you so much for touching on that. That has been in my life a large motivator for monogamy, thinking that like, oh, then I'll be safe. If I am with one person, then I can like cling on to them so tightly and manage everything so well that it will work, which it has sometimes and it hasn't other times, and it has to morph with each person.
Yeah. And to me, one of the biggest shifts that I've made is that my self-worth is not defined by whether or not this person loves me. My self-worth is mine.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. If this person I love loves me, that's great. That delights me. And it's even more important for me that I be like allowed to show them that I love them. Like that's amazing. And so the other thing that not ethical non-monogamy is, and the ethical is put in there because there's a lot of people who are doing non-monogamy and not talking about it. There's a lot of people who think they're in monogamous relationships and they're not. Because they never talk about sex, or like one person is in an open relationship but hasn't informed the other person that that's the case. Like there's a lot of that. Let's see, where was I going with that? I don't remember. I'll have to go on to something else. So you had a list of like questions of like, what are the biggest questions? And I would say the biggest one that comes up here is, what about jealousy?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. So how has that worked for you?
Well, when I was practicing an open relationship, I was also a student. And at the time, like all of my past trauma as a child came flying through the door, which felt really difficult trying to manage all of the emotions and processing, and having alone time when that person was away to then process, like, okay, when have I felt this before? Like, why am I feeling this? What is showing up right now? And where have I felt this before that's been really, really big in my life? And it always stemmed back to childhood, always. But it took me like a while to always arrive there. So I did a lot of self-investigation when jealousy would show up, which I know is not an easy path. It wasn't an easy path for me. It's not an easy path for most, but you really get to dissect your emotions. So I'm curious what your process is around jealousy, or what wisdom has shown up from it, because it's a teacher.
It's such a teacher. So to me,
Yeah.
jealousy is almost as big a teacher as fear. It is the same. It's fear.
Ooh, yeah.
It's fear of loss. It's
Yep.
an imagined fear of loss. You're imagining that you're going to lose something that's important, a resource, a source of love. And jealousy is a really inexact term, actually. Like when you say, it's like, what do you mean jealous? Like, what is that? And jealousy shows up in all, like, people in monogamous relationships experience jealousy all the time. We talked about this before. Like you feel jealousy about siblings. You feel jealousy if somebody else gets a job or an opportunity that you might want. You might feel jealousy if your spouse is flirting and you're not like, it's there. And to me, when it shows up, it's always about a story I'm telling myself about some way. It's really, to me, it's the radar that shows me where I think I'm unlovable, where I'm not loving myself.
That's so beautiful.
Not loving myself, and where I have tried to outsource that and hand it over to this other person to love me. And then if I feel like they might not do that anymore, then I'm like, oh my God, I have this giant hole.
You're talking about personal responsibility too, which is like a whole other step in it. Like to notice you're jealous, which I read a long time ago that jealousy is like an umbrella term for a bundle of emotions.
It is.
So when you unpack those emotions and you're like, oh, I actually feel fear, or I feel anger, or I feel
unworthy.
Unworthy. It's all these different things. And I used to always approach jealousy as, you are making me jealous.
That's right. So you need to stop that thing you're doing.
Right.
That's making me feel jealous.
Yeah. So I can feel safe and you can manage my feelings. But when practicing polyamory, it's more like you have to just take those moments and go, oh, yeah, why am I feeling this?
Right.
What am I feeling?
Actually, when you're practicing any kind of intentional conscious relationship, that's the work.
Yep.
It's the same work as in, and I have nothing against monogamy. I think intentional monogamy is a beautiful, amazing, creative space.
Yeah.
But to me, it's doing the work also to get to the point of saying, I'm going to be monogamous because that's the model that works for this being in this body. And not because that's the thing that's expected of me. That's the thing that my culture tells me I need to do. That's the legal form of relationship that's approved of in our country.
Right.
That I'm afraid that other people will think less of me if I'm not monogamous, like any of that. It's like, no, actually, I'm going to be monogamous because it's awesome for me. And I've done the work to say, what I'm feeling is me. Anything I'm feeling is from me. I created. This other person can never make me feel anything.
That's such a good one.
So if there's something happening, anger, feeling neglected, feeling whatever, let me look at how I'm creating that.
Someone in the chat said, I love details even more. I love informed consent and respecting boundaries.
Yes. Yeah. And that, that's very interesting because there's boundaries on each side about details. For example, if like I might want to give you all the details of the date I had last night, you may not want to hear them.
Yep.
Love me like crazy and be like, yeah, I love that you had a great time. I love that this person made you so happy. That is really all I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a space there where I have to hold, like, and there's like a question of who is it for? Like when I want to tell you that, who is that for? Well, that's actually for me because I want to be witnessed in that place. But you may not be the person who wants to do that. You may be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And especially around sexual details. Sometimes, like, especially that looks like you can't unsee it once you're ready to bring. So,
yeah.
And some people love that. Some people find that a complete turn on. It's like, yes, give me every detail of what you did, where you did it, what you used. Yeah.
Can you tell me one of your favorite or most vivid, like, experiences of being and finally living in the relationship style that you desired, and it being like, yes, this is the moment?
I have one that comes to mind immediately, which is being in a long distance committed relationship, poly. We're both, poly, and that means that we are committed to each other and have the option for other opportunities. And I was at a play party in New York with a mutual friend, actually the person who is the Dom in the first story. So there's the writers of this episode are like tying everything together. And it was a Tantra play party, and I was like mostly watching, kind of voyeur, but someone had invited a world-class cellist. And the cellist and I talked before the party about, like, wouldn't it be cool to do something, like, he was bringing his cello, and it's like, wow, if we could do something around that, that would be really cool. And at the end of the night, there was a request that he play, and he, we like negotiated. And so I sat behind him. I think I was naked. I'm pretty sure I was naked. I might have had panties on. I'm not sure. He had underwear on only, and he had his cello. And the room was all, like, everyone was focused. So energetically, it was the whole room being in this experience. And this, like, silence fell. And he started to play. And I could feel the vibration through his body. And I was playing I was playing the music in his body while he played it on the cello and shared it with the room. And it was so beautiful and so mind-blowing. And I'm like, I could never do this if I was monogamous. That would never work.
Tell me, I am so imagining so many things right now.
It was so great. So he's in front of me. I have my body against his, so I can feel the vibration through his body.
Face to face or
no, I'm behind his back. He's
you're
facing
spooning.
the room. He's got the cello bow here.
When you said
and
playing
I'm
his body,
around, I'm touching his genitals. I'm playing with him while he's playing, but I'm moving with the music.
Oh my God.
It was like such a shapeshifter experience. First of all, shit. Like, you can't even make that up. But, like, when you're fan, it's like, what do I want to fantasize about? That never would have shown up, although it does now. Yeah, that was, and it was something where I had negotiated ahead of time, about touch with other people. I knew I didn't want penetration. There was no penetration involved in that, but it was fucking awesome. Amazing.
I can't imagine playing music while being aroused. And, like, I mean, I guess if you're a cello player that is very well versed in it, you just kind of go.
He's played under every conditions, and it was his fantasy too.
Oh my God.
Fantasy. He was like, this is a performance art piece that I would love to do more. I just don't think I could get away with it.
Oh my God.
Except maybe, I don't know, Amsterdam in a window or something. So yeah, that's a really beautiful. And one of the other one was earlier on, I was involved with a rope dom. And so all I would do was play sessions with him. I wasn't dating him. We weren't, but I was, like, regularly being tied by him.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend at the time, we had a scene where something came up that was something that they weren't doing together that she wanted. And she was hurt by that. She was jealous. She called me up the next day, and she texted me, and she said, I'm feeling so jealous about that scene last night. I know it's not about you. Can we talk? And we had this, like, 2-hour conversation where I ended up coaching her about asking for what she wanted, because she's like, but I want that from him, and he won't do it with me, and he's doing it with you. That's what the jealousy was. And I'm like, great, ask him to do that with you. Here's how you do it. Like, we had this whole thing. But to me, her reaching out in that way was so, like, that's what I want. She knew we were together. She knew after the fact what we were doing. She knew roughly what we were doing beforehand. She was expressing her feelings. Everybody got to be included. There was no wall up between her and me. And actually, and I'm misgendering now because they are now a them. So my apologies. They're one of my best friends.
Aww.
Those guys broke up, but we have played together. And it started with that. And they also said I was one of the only ones that he was playing with that would contact her, that was like open, that was actually doing the work of open communication. So both of those were just like, yeah, this is how I want to do it. And this is why. This is why. This is what's possible. And I can also say I had an experience in the last few months where I'm like, well, I should be dating because I'm poly. I really should have another boyfriend. And I tried that out, and it didn't really work for me. It felt like a lot of time management, a lot of pressure. And I kind of like divided loyalties. It was weird. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And maybe it was that particular person. I don't know. But I've had like 6 months since then to kind of do a reset and go, I don't think I need to, because I was like on OkCupid and looking for it. And now I'm like, for me, I'm like, I guess it's the sensual. I don't know if it's the demisexual, but I need heart connection. I need really deep, big heart connection. I need to feel super safe emotionally. Safe meaning I feel open to you and you show up, and creating that artificially doesn't seem like it works for me. So I think, but that's the opportunity thing. It's like if someone showed up other than my amazing partner, I'd like the opportunity to see if that feels like an avenue I would want to pursue. But I don't know. I have no idea what I would want to do with that. And when I say my amazing partner, part of what happened is we had a breakup because of all of that stuff and because of all the ways I got weird and he got weird, and we've unpacked it. And actually, I'm picking him up at the airport tonight. It's the first time I'll be seeing him in 6 months. It happened right at the beginning of COVID. Yeah. And it feels really great to have done that much work. It was great.
That's so beautiful, and I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. And it also means that I got to be poly and self-isolating for 6 months. It was a whole amazing thing, like total relationship with myself. So yeah. Beautiful. So what about you? Highlight.
Say that again.
Highlight of opportunities or expressing this kind of loving, where it's not owning and where it's like loving them so much that you want them to have amazing experiences, even if it's not with you, or also if it's not with you.
Yeah, I've really loved being in that past relationship and being open, or them being poly and me being open. We negotiated often, and because of that, I now negotiate all of the terms that I have in my relationship now, where we openly talk about our attraction to other people. We talk about and negotiate like how we can interact with other people's minds in a sexual way, and we continually shape our boundaries, which was not something that was really that open before being poly.
Yeah.
Now we can always gauge like what it is that you need to feel really satisfied, what I need to feel to be satisfied. And being able to express and have that open communication, I think, is one of the most valuable tools in any relationship, regardless of what your preferred.
I think that's actually one of the big differences with the way monogamy is often done.
Yeah.
Which is there's like one negotiation before you get married, and then you never renegotiate.
Right.
So that whole idea of fluid consent, and like 10 years later, I'm a different person.
Yeah.
Different needs. Can we talk about that? To make that a practice is just so important and freeing and loving, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You just made me understand too that our relationships are always shifting and changing, and the dynamic is shifting and changing. And what is often not spoken about is like how we can actually shift and change as its needs shift and change. And
Yes.
having that open communication allows you to blossom into that new version of your relationship or your new expression of sexuality, where sometimes if that's not discussed, it gets left behind, and then resentment builds, and then desires go astray, or there's dishonesty. So I totally see how that functions.
Yeah. And I would actually say in my marriage, when we were doing that last year, one of the themes was he felt betrayed that I had changed.
Mm.
He felt that change was a betrayal, that we had made a deal. He said that so much. We'd made one deal.
You'd never change.
Broken that deal, which was 24 years ago.
Oh
And
my
yes,
God.
I had made a deal. It was a written contract. And that's not how humans are. That's not how
Yeah.
we are. And
Yeah.
particularly like we're seeing it right now this year, like how many ways have you changed since March? That you didn't even know
Yeah.
we're going to be part of the plan. We
Oh,
have
yeah.
to be able to change.
Yeah.
And so how do we share that with each other so that we can be fluid and make room for that?
I love that.
Yeah.
So for the people that are watching that are like this sounds really nice, like I would love to enter into this in my first step, or I think mostly for the people that are like that have always wanted to try this, but maybe have never taken the first step. What kind of advice do you think would be best for those types of new?
I would say, for me, what was really important and what I've seen be really helpful for clients is get success stories, find out, join support groups, talk to the people who are doing this well, because there's a lot, way more than you could possibly imagine, of monogamy conditioning is one of the ways we refer to it, of just these assumptions we make about how relationships have to work because it's the only thing we've ever known. And so talking to people who are doing it differently, you can get ideas. And because there's lots of different ways to do this.
Yeah, so many different ways.
It's a continuum. Like there's the people who are swingers, even swingers. So swingers are more likely just wanting sexual partners besides their partner. But some swingers, it's like, I only have sex if my partner can also have sex with that same person at the same time. Or I only have sex at a resort where we're in the same house and then we leave together, and they consider themselves monogamous because they only have sex at, when they have the deal. So it's just a huge continuum. There are people who want to live in a polycule of 4 or 5 people where people are variously connected. There's some people who are solo poly, where they want to have relationships, multiple relationships, but those people don't necessarily interact with each other ever. And they may or may not know much about each other. They just know that that person has other partners. There's so many different ways. There's monogamish, which is, exactly. I think I'm more that way now, after this 6 months of reflection. I think that may be more where I am, which is I'm more inclined to go deep with one other human. And also want to hold the door open for possibilities for them and me. And that part of what that does is take the pressure off that one relationship to be everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's
another unwritten agreement from monogamy, that like, you are my friend, my lover, my housekeeper, my whatever. You're the everything for me.
And I own your body and I own your time. How dare you go out drinking when there's a night that we could be together? Or I need you at home for dinner every night because I want someone to have dinner with every night because I'm scared to be alone, or whatever. That sense of just indignation of like, wow, my monogamous partner wants to go on a vacation without me. Like, how could they? Right. Yeah.
Someone in the chat said, what are some conversations / open communication that you have regularly? Maybe share an example or two.
Yeah. So one of them is called a radar. I love radars. That was a concept I got from, there's a really great podcast called the Multi-Amory Podcast. There's a bunch of great groups and podcasts. This one it's a regular relationship meeting.
Yeah.
Which you can do in monogamy as well. But
I
it's
do
like
it.
every 2 weeks, maybe once a month. And it's a set list of topics. You can change, you can adapt it. But it's things like, let's talk about our sex life. How's it going? Do we want to explore things? How's it working for you? Is there anything in the way? It can be conflicts. So we had a conflict last month. I think it was resolved. How do you feel about it? Is it really resolved? And is there anything we need to do about the way we communicate around conflicts that we could fix? Communication is one of the topics. One of them could be metamors, which is the partners of my partner. And so just updating, like, okay, there's somebody that I met that I might want to go on a date with. And there's a whole subtopic around that about how much you inform each other, especially if you're pretty intensely involved. And what we worked out was it's when there's a change of intention. So
Ooh, I like that.
when I think somebody's hot and I actually want to take action on it, I will tell the person. When there's an actual date set up, when then the date goes well and it's like, oh, I want to date them again. And then when there's I want to have the STI conversation because I want to have sex with them, or the possibility of sex with them. And then like, okay, we've made a date and sex is going to be included. And safe sex that's one of the topics for the radar. Like, what is our agreement
Of what safe sex is.
Of what safe sex is between us for each of us to feel like our risk management is working. And I would add at this point, COVID needs to be an ongoing conversation of like, how are we handling it? Who are we potting with? Who are we seeing? What are the practices? What kind of exposure might we have had? All of that.
Beautiful. That's something similar to what I practice, where it's like 6 different questions we go over. It's a weekly thing that I do with my partner. And I got this suggestion from friends of mine that are poly and married and have been doing this practice for, I think, 5 years now. We first start with talking about how you are right now, like your mind and body state. How are you?
Nice.
This is a good time for us to talk, even if it might be scheduled. Then we talk about compliments and gratitudes for each other.
Aww.
Just to like build each other up and bring the love in. Then we go over any unaired thoughts that we had the week prior. And this is just a time for listening. It's not a time to explain or correct or have a conversation. It's just to have that be heard. And then after that, we go into planning the week ahead, which includes self-care time, meaning alone time, time together, and then when we can have time with others, like friends and such. So that way, like the rest of our week then is like titrated just enough for us to have togetherness and spaciousness, because I think that's such a huge value in my relationship of needing spaciousness so that when we come together, it's special.
Yeah.
And I live with my partner. So it's like, let's untangle an enmeshment and make it so that we can have these clear boundaries of when we're spending time and focusing on ourselves.
I love that. And I especially love that right now when people are sort of spending a lot of forced time together and they're not managing that piece about like, oh my God, I need an hour to just be in my own space. Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah. And then we go over how can I love you better next week?
Aww.
So little things, big things, whatever it is that you would like to request that the person accepts. So that's what we do in ours. And it's been really great. Yeah.
I can tell you, by the way, I'm in the poly support group. That's another thing. You can join a poly support group.
Yes.
There's lots of them. That's a great place to learn and talk to people. And poly support groups generally are open to anyone who's curious. So you don't already have to identify as poly in order to check it out. And people are generally very happy to answer questions. But there's a couple in our poly support group locally. They've been married 50 years and they've been since the beginning.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Isn't that awesome?
That's amazing.
They're so sweet. I love them. They're really great.
That's so amazing. That's mainly what made me want to try alternative relationship styles out, because I was, my parents were divorced very early on. And a lot of the people that have been in my life have been divorced. And so I thought, okay, how can this work better? And I think that just created an opening of like, maybe there's other ways that this works for people.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Yeah, I love that. What are the things that you feel like are things to know when entering this, for people to just be aware of? Anything that might be a turn off?
All of your shadows will show up.
Yes.
To me, this is also a very deep spiritual path.
Mm.
It brings up all my shit all the time.
Mm.
Not all the time, but on a regular basis.
When there's shit to be
insecurities, judgments, the ways that I'm harsh on myself, all of that. Managing conflict, just all of that. And so it's a great place to, it can go very deep. It is something that's really helpful to do in community. People are trying to do poly and not talking to anybody about how they're doing it. I can't even imagine that.
It'll make you crazy. Yeah.
That help. Yes.
Yeah.
Get lots of support. What else? I forgot the question.
Any turn-offs to that foreshadow this journey, which you just mentioned.
One of the things that's been challenging is when my partner has started dating someone where I'm like, I'm not sure I like that person. The level of letting go that's required for that is really, it's like, they need to do their own exploration. They're not me. And especially to come back to like, there's this deep heart resonance with this human. And so if they meet someone and they feel like a flicker of that I want them to pursue that, because if that's actually there, chances are that's someone that I will feel that way too. Like, not necessarily want to like be in a relationship with them,
right?
But to feel like they're part of the pack, you know?
Yeah. It's like a family in a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you share, Anne, when we talked earlier the other day, you really hit something home for me when you talked about your experience of self-pleasure and your self-pleasure practice being something that illuminated your process in relationships. Yeah.
The especially in this last 6 months, I've been going deep into this, that I think a lot of our panic sometimes about like this fear of losing a partner or distance or insecurity is that we feel like their touch is what we need to achieve joy or orgasm or pleasure. And we tend to discount our own touch. We have a bias in our culture that it doesn't count. It's like you can't tickle yourself. Well, you kind of can. You really can.
Yeah.
You totally can, especially if you use a feather or something. That what I discover over and over is my own touch is as valid as the touch of any other lover. And that when I honor my own giving, that, and I'm holding the container for myself to then be able to surrender to pleasure. I'm in both of those roles. There's this level of trust in myself that happens. That's really crucial, that allows me then to be with anyone else free of that panic, because it's like, but I've got this home base, I've got this. And it's the same practice in meditation of being able to bring yourself back to breath, to kind of like, chase yourself down. It's the same thing in medicine journeys, of being solo medicine journeys, of being able to hold the container and be like, I remember I have a body, I need a drink, and now I can go back, drop back in, but I've set a timer so that I'm taking care of my, like all of that. When I trust myself at that level, it's so much easier for me to then trust my lover.
Yeah.
And the places where I'm not trusting them, or even not trusting the person they're dating, is something that's a projection. of something that I feel is maybe out of integrity with myself.
Thank you for highlighting that. I think that that's so valuable to understand that like some of the scarcity of attention, affection, love can come from our own neglect.
Yes.
The neglect of ourselves that we have created in the relationship to ourselves as our own best lover.
Right. And
Yeah.
best lover meaning also I can take myself out to dinner. I can buy myself flowers.
Mm-hmm.
I can bring myself to orgasm, or I can just play with my own foot for half an hour with total love.
Yeah.
But yeah, like taking time, creating space for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Creating spaciousness, like when there's something big that's happened emotionally, to build in time to integrate. Do it. No one will care about that more than me, for myself, ever. And I can completely create abundance in that place.
So wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Someone in the chat said, can you suggest some specific support groups?
Yeah. Let's see. For Facebook, there's a bunch of them. There is the Positively Poly, I think. There's Polyamoring is really great. I love her. And now I can't think of her name right now. Phoebe Phillips writes a blog, and she has a Facebook group, and she has, I think, a Patreon also. She writes about essentially being monopoly. Which means that she is mostly mono, although she does some, not mono, not meaning she has mono, meaning she orients to one partner, although she does some kink play now, I think, and has a partner who has many partners. And navigating that space emotionally, because that works for her emotionally, and that works for her partner emotionally. And then what do you do with time management? Having time to yourself, having enough time with each other, same issues. Yeah, she's great. Let's see, who else? The Multi-Amory podcast. If you join their Patreon, it's not much, like $5 or $6. Then you get in their Facebook group, which is a really great support space also. And I can't think of any others right now, but do you know any?
That's great resources.
Yeah, they're really great. Yeah.
The only other resource that I just thought of is the Slutosaurus group that I recently joined.
Yeah, they're good. Right.
Yeah.
And also there's some, just Google polyamory or ethical non-monogamy, not Google, but go into like iTunes or Spotify. There's tons of podcasts on this too.
I think there's lots of local meetups as well, like on meetup.com.
Yeah.
I know that there's a meetup group that was joining this.
Right. And then my local polyamory support group also is connected to the national group, which is called Loving More. And they have done conferences a couple times a year, like regional conferences that you can physically go to when people can travel again and physically gather.
Yeah.
But they are just a national sort of umbrella group for lifestyle, exchanging information, like all of that. Also, there is a ton of overlap between the kink community and the poly community. And what's the other one? Let's see. There's the kink community, the poly community, and there's another one that is also, I can't remember. People who play with other people. I don't know.
Yeah. I just was wondering, I was like, what is that about the kink community and the poly community? It's that they're all pro communication, pro play, pro possibilities.
Yes. So the guy who wrote Stealing Fire did a talk about consent culture and fluid consent. And he said the consent technologies, the places where they are developed to the highest degree are in kink.
Oh, yeah.
And in the climbing community.
Oh, I forgot you're a climber too.
That's right. Because that is a total consent conversation of like, I'm going to entrust my life to you. So let's make sure we're on the same page about safety. Let's make sure we're both, about this route, that we're okay with backing off, that we have everything we like, all of that. That's a consent conversation.
Yeah.
And the kink community have to be, it's a little like poly too, because it's like, yeah, okay, you're kinky and I'm kinky, but what kind of kinky are you? Like maybe I want to do adult diaper play and you're like really into ropes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not, maybe we won't, maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe there's, so anyway. Yeah, so you have to be upfront about asking for what you want in order to get it.
Yeah. Anne, can you show us one of your favorite little toys that you have nearby? Do you have a toy nearby?
This is funny because I'm here because I'm going to be doing some body work, and in my body work sessions, I'm a shapeshifter and I bring in everything. So I have all my toys arrayed around the bed. So let's see, there's like a paddle. I'll just do a little tour. Cuffs. This one's great. This one is made out of duct tape and shoestrings. It's like a
Ooh.
fogger. It's really good, actually. Rope.
I love that you got so many toys. Wait, what is that, fur?
Yes.
It looks like a wig, kind of. Oh,
no,
I see.
It's like one of those capes. I got it at some consignment store, but it's like really great to drag across the body. I have a bead flogger. I have this thing, which is really loud. This is loud, but it doesn't really it's a bamboo thing. So those are my toys.
I love that when I say, do you have a favorite toy? You're like, well, look at this.
Let me show you 25 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm in an Airbnb. This is not my bedroom. I'm in an Airbnb because I'm in Colorado and I'm going to be doing some immersions with people. So we'll be playing with toys.
Amazing.
Yay.
Okay, so is there any work that you would love to share with people of what you're doing, of how to get a hold of you? I know that one thing that I love that you do is pleasure pop-ups. So if you love Anne, you can follow Anne, and Anne does random pleasure pop-ups where she goes into exploring pleasure.
I do that. Yes, I've been doing that for a couple of years, and it's just like when I discover something amazing and I want to share it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have any group things coming up or anything right now, although I'm looking at September to do one. So you can follow me on Facebook. It's ANNEMORE. My website is yesandmore.com. So it's YESANNEMORE.com. And I have a bunch of stuff there. Like I do a little blogging, and I have a video about what is sexological bodywork in case you're curious about that. Yeah, mostly to reach me, it's on Facebook, and there's an intake form on the website if you're interested in setting up a call. I mostly am doing sort of longer term VIP clients at this time, because I find a deep dive is most effective, especially if people are going to be doing I want to do open relationships, and I want to explore kink, and I want to learn how to do energetic whatever. And it's okay, we might need a little time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my clients tend to be super creative and amazing, and they just know that there's more possibility, or they know there's more and they're super masterful and creative in some area of their life, but they're kind of locked up around sex or around relationship, and they want to just open the possibility floodgates. So
fun.
Yes.
Yum. Yep. Thank you so much, Anne. This has been so fun. I'm starting to think more and more about the relationship that I have now, and what kind of things we can renegotiate within COVID terms. And I appreciate you for opening up my mind and everyone else's that's here. And if you have any questions, let us know. I would love to know in the chat. And if you're still watching this, remember to either subscribe or give a thumbs up if you're liking this content. Next week, in 2 weeks, we are going to have another Opening the Bedroom Doors, all about keeping sex alive while being a parent. So after having kids, how can you keep that fresh? How can you keep that a priority? How can you keep that really fun in your sex life? Yeah, and then next week, I have a long-term relationship class that's called Keeping the Spark Alive. I'll provide that information in our group, Opening the Bedroom Doors. And Anne, is there any kind of way that you would love to blow kisses to people to say goodbye?
I would love to blow kisses with the beautiful paddle that I have in my hand.
Ooh! Okay, wait, can I grab mine too?
Yes.
Paddle, where are you?
We need paddle kisses.
I couldn't find my paddle, but I could find my
Perfect. Even better.
I haven't used this on flies. Don't worry.
Okay. All right.
Only on food. Yes. Okay, ready?
Right. Okay. I feel like Glinda the Good.
Yeah.
Glinda the Bad. I'm Glinda the Bad.
I'm the spanking fairy. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. So